I see y'all got the memo.
Yeah. Hey, friend.
Hey, look at us looking all FAMU'd out. They need to pay us for this good commercial.
I know, I'm telling you. Oh, wait a minute. Y'all got to see Ava. Hold on.
Ava, our miracle baby. She's getting so big. Hey, Ava. Hey, Auntie Baby. Hey, Mama. She's so precious. Oh, my God.
She couldn't go to sleep. She was waiting for this.
Yeah.
She couldn't even get to sleep. She had to be a part of this testimony. And that's funny because for those who have heard the podcast, you've heard Ava. Ava was a part of the show. She's in the background co-signing, but she was such a good baby during the interview. We really didn't have any problems with her. And I'm so glad because she is an angel. And so I'm excited to introduce everybody to you guys tonight. The podcast has been doing really well. 2 of my most listened to episodes. And the last one got traction without me even promoting it. I didn't even get I just put a teaser out today, and it was neck and neck with the first episode. So people are really drawn to your testimony, and you're feeding the people right now. So just giving them some background on how Ava got here. In episode 1, we talk about marriage, faith, and fertility. And we talk about the journey to Ava. So let's go back to January 2019 when we were having a vision board party. And one of the things that you put on your vision board was to start a family. Tell us about that time.
Yeah, so a little backstory. A few years before that, the doctor told me that we would have to do IVF. We had did some series of testing, and then they said my tubes were blocked. And so IVF was the only solution. So we, in 2019, when we did the vision board party, we were going to be intentional that year in trying to get pregnant. And so we were thinking later on in the year, we're going to prepare for IVF.
Later on in the year. We were preparing financially, mentally, emotionally to start that process way later on in the year. And it turns out that we were already pregnant during the vision board party, but we did not know. We had no idea that we were pregnant, and it was truly a miracle. I think at the time I was still working with Nike, and I think I flew out the next day to Portland for work, and we were just traveling all over the place, went to Canada, and then I flew to Providence to complete my thesis from my master's program at Brown. And I was so tired while I was in class, exhausted. And my mother kept saying, go take a pregnancy test, go take a pregnancy test.
Okay, Ava. Okay, Ava. She's going to get in her 2 cents.
Yeah. And so I told my mom, I was like, Mom, that would be a waste of money. Those pregnancy tests are so expensive. And she was like, well, just rule it out, And I finally gave in and went to go take the test and found out that I was pregnant.
But you thought, this is my favorite part of the story, because I didn't know that you were going through this in your faith walk and your marriage. And I was so privileged to be at that vision board party. I was so inspired by everybody in the room, but I saw that glow on you. I saw a spark. I saw something there. And I just think it's so phenomenal and so God that it was already done before you asked for it. Like that's what he means. You got to see it. You got to see it first. You got to be able to envision that promise. And it was already done for you. What did that feel like?
Oh my God. I think I was just so emotional. And even sometimes I'm not going to cry. I told myself I will not cry. But
it's okay, girl, because I might. I've edited both episodes and I've been.
When I really think about the goodness of God, it's really mind blowing, because I talk to my husband all the time, and I said, God has always fulfilled the desires of my heart. But this one just seemed come on.
It's okay, Ava.
She knew you was coming today.
So, this one felt a lot more impossible, and I was just really blown away by God's faithfulness, his goodness and favor
in allowing something like that to happen, you know. So it really increased our faith in believing that we will get whatever it is that we pray for in God's timing, and just to just really trust the process. So
that's easier said than done, Parker. Let's talk about this process. Let's talk about that faith walk, that the doubt, going from doubt to faith, you know, because that's a level that you got to get to. To looking at the impossible, to doctors telling you that you're going to need help, you're going to have trouble as a matter of fact, and then God comes in. What was that process like, that waiting game?
So the hardest part is like watching her see, seeing the hurt on her face, because she felt like that's the only thing I can't do as a woman. And I felt like, I'm like, it's not possible. Women, God, created you to bear, humans, and I thought you can't go off of one opinion. You can't just, take the word of somebody else.
You helping some people today. And
hey,
I said, I'm not going to cry with y'all today. I
talked to a guy this week, and I was just like, he said, he was like, his wife is having a fertility issue. And I was just like, man, don't count it out. Don't ever, count it out, because you never know what can happen. And like our situation, I honestly thought we was preparing to start the process. And even with the process, it's not guaranteed. You can do this 3-4 times and still not make it, it may not work. But with us, it's like God knew exactly, his time was the perfect timing, because we wasn't even prepared to start. And then we was already pregnant. Mm-hmm. And we thought, we was like, man, we can't afford it right now. We're not, we're not in a position. I'm still in school. She was in Boston. We had a baby. She's in Boston. So that just showed you that
Great
God.
job, Parker.
I say, hey, Georgia, don't start, Georgia. I was just saying, like, you never know what can happen and when it can happen. So just, be open to anything and just trust the process,
Yeah.
Talya, I wanted to ask you about the fertility part, because I don't even think I've ever talked to you about this, but when I was 26, I was diagnosed with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And for those out there, it really affects your hormones, and it affects your fertility. And I noticed it because I started gaining a lot of weight. And I wasn't able to get the weight off. I started getting a lot of extra facial hair, and that was really frustrating. And I didn't feel like a woman. I didn't feel feminine. So then when I go to the doctor searching for answers, and she says, you're probably going to need some help getting pregnant. And I'm not even in a relationship. I'm not thinking about love. I'm not thinking about kids. So to hear that at the age of 26 is jarring. What is your advice to women out there like myself who've heard these things from doctors, and we're trying to keep the faith?
Oh my God. So I think it's a combination of things. I think one is the exercising your faith and really spending a lot of time with God, because one, I had to eliminate a lot of negativity. As a matter of fact, when we got pregnant, I think that was the happiest moment of my life, period. Not to say everything was perfect, but my mental state, the way I process things, the way I move, my connectivity with my relationship with God, it was at its best. And when I was in Boston for work, I was doing things. I did adjust my eating. I was exercising more, and I was managing my stress. So there's the physical component. But spiritually, I was spending so much time with God. I was just in a different space of just open to experiencing whatever God had for me. And just that mental space and connection, the next month I was pregnant, so I don't know if
as quick as you released it to God, he picked it up.
Released it. When I say completely released it, it was like, a lot of times we go to God in prayer with these expectations, right? And expectations are okay. But sometimes our timing is not always in alignment with God. And so I'm a control freak. I like to have absolute control of everything that's taking place in my life. I plan everything out to the T. And so that was.
And you do a great job, girl. You're really well organized. The parties be lit, okay?
Thank you. So for me, it was a period in my life where I had finally released. I released all control. I released all my expectations and just being open to what God, expectations are of me. And just, woke up every day with God, what can I do for you today? And that really changed the way I moved, the way I connected with people, the way I was with my husband, my family. And my entire mood changed. The way I moved changed. Everything was so different. And the December of 2019.
I wanted to say something. You mentioned the funniest thing is the reason why she took the job at Nike because she had other options on the table. The reason she took the job because I told her, I said, this is the only opportunity you gonna have where you don't have any kids and you're not pregnant. And I said, you living in Boston won't be hard for me because we're in school all day anyways. So you moving is not going to hurt our marriage because a lot of people said that, why would y'all do that? Y'all married, that's a lot. And I was just like, listen, we don't have any kids. Only responsible we have is each other. And we're so, not say seasoned, I don't want to say seasoned, but we've been doing it so long that we trust each other. And I'm like, this is the best opportunity for the both of us because that's a career that both of us can benefit off of. And I told her, I was like, go ahead and try, just go ahead and do it. And then she got pregnant and it was like, oh, that's off the board. So you got to come back home, So that's what changed a lot for us.
I love what you said in the podcast. I don't even know if I even published this part, but part of our conversation was you started operating in the role of parent before you were parents. You already started preparing for the blessing and exercising and conditioning for the role that you were praying for.
Right.
Tell me what it was like to be that godparent, to be the uncle, to be the auntie, knowing that, you had a request from God.
Yeah. I'm going to say this, and this is a testimony to our marriage. I feel like God won't bless you with anything if he feel like you can't control, you can't handle it, put in words. So by us, extending grace to people that needed our help, either financially or needed somebody to, just extend a welcome to their kids. And we never had kids, but we knew how to be guardians. We knew what not to do. So I think by us showing them grace and helping them in the time of need and just understanding their situation, a lot of people want kids, but it's such a process. Like you have to be prepared to do whatever it takes for that child. And I think for us, we started extending grace to like nieces and nephews and friends and just starting to say, you know what, if you guys need a break, let us know. We'll help you, And that started showing us that, are we ready for kids? And it just got better because we were so in love with their kids that I told her, I was like, man, we need to have some ourselves. Not, of course we knew about the fertility thing, but we also was like, let's go happen, when it was supposed to happen. And that's exactly what we
unapologetically. I love that. The faith that you have, bold faith.
Right.
Yeah, no, we everybody know I love on the babies. So my nieces, my nephew, everybody, and I'm a giver, so I would really give of myself freely to the kids in our lives, goddaughters, godsons and things like that. And I think that really prepared our heart to receive our own blessing.
Right. So it was after 5 years of marriage that you guys found out you were pregnant, that you started the family. You guys just celebrated 6 years, right?
Yeah.
6 years,
So I know that, Parker, you referenced that the relationship was strong enough for her to go to Boston and take this job with Nike. But there was a time in your relationship where you both had to grow in your faith. I think that that's part two of the episode. That's probably my favorite, where we really talk about what it means to be a purpose partner. And I think what was so great about the conversation is you both realized in your relationships, in your relationship, in your marriage, that your faith individually with God, your relationship with God had to be strong. So tell me about that time. What was it like when, Parker, you thought it was over with? She gave you the papers, like, what was that like coming back from that moment?
Just you keep real, I don't like experiencing that because, man, that was a dark time for the both of us, and we really was at odds with each other. Like, man, we was not speaking. We had we was living in an apartment with two separate rooms, two bathrooms. So she'll do her thing on one side of the house, I'll do my thing on the other side, and it wasn't a marriage.
I
That's
know
not
you're
what it's
tired of me
for.
asking about it, but there are some people who are who are in a dark place. Some people are in a marriage and the wife is in a dark place, or the husband's in a dark place, but you guys were in a dark place together. I think that's
Right.
important to reference when we talk about your miracle that God gave you together. You
Right.
guys struggled together and you had to go through that darkness in order to get to the other side and be the parents who Ava needs you to be.
Right. And I think we give us so much love because of that. And I think it's you got to be real with people. Like when people ask me about marriage, I'm be like, look, it's something you got to put work into. You know, just like how you get up and every day you go to work, you got to put in work. And if you don't, you will find out. And with my wife, she's cancer, so she lets me know more than more than not. Hey, look, I need some attention. You know, and I just had to realize, like at first, I say in the beginning of our marriage, I always thought I was looking at her like what she was doing wrong and judging her like, oh, you're not doing this physically, you're not catering to me, you're not cook, just pointing out all her flaws and saying this is why our marriage not gonna work. And it wasn't until I like started looking at myself and saying, you know what? Why is she crying? Like, why is she always mad? Why she don't like what's going on? I had to check myself and I had to start looking at myself and saying, man, you're not being a great partner, man. Your wife walking right past you, you're not even saying nothing to her. You're not even speaking
You talked
because you're
about
so
that
mad.
scene in War Room, and I haven't seen the movie yet, but you talked about that scene where the guy was praying or his wife was getting beat up.
Right.
And and he turned out, what was the revelation in that scene?
So for me, it was he saw his wife being hurt. She was getting beat down, and he was going to help, like what any man should do or would do. He was going to help her, and then when he realized the person who he was trying to stop from hurting his wife, it was him. So they used him as a kind of like a I don't know, like
reflection.
yeah, reflection. It's like a mirror. He was like going to attack the guy, like get off my wife, and then he looked and he just paused, and his breath just
attacking your wife.
It just took his breath away. He was like, man, all this time.
I think that's real. Sometimes we gotta admit when we're the problem.
Man, it's so real, and it's not till you get to that place, then you can really start to grow. Because a lot of people think you got to be the perfect person and point out everything. But sometimes you got to look at yourself and say, what am I doing? What am I doing wrong? Something's not right, It's a reason why they're crying. So.
And like for me, I give the example when with my Dope Wives group, we did the devotional with the Power of a Praying Wife. And the first chapter of the Power of a Praying Wife was the wife. Like I was so excited when I bought the book because I was like, yep, we're going to get my husband together, Lord. And
she was ready.
We put him before the Lord. And then, the first chapter was his wife. That book, it made me check my heart before I can even go to God about my husband. And so for me, that was a revelation because he is also God's child. God loves him just as much as he loves me. So there's no way I can go to God about him with an angry heart. So I had to do some heart cleansing and checking myself so that I can go to God in love about my husband. And so from that point, it changed the way I even responded to him, the way I looked at him, because I had to start responding to him in love because those chapters was really convicting for me. And it's hard to be upset at someone that you're praying for. Like I was praying for all these specific things. Within the chapter, it was like his job, his purpose, his friends, his relationship with Christ. It was like all these different elements. And it was like, I'm praying for all these, pieces of my husband's life.
Ooh, that's real.
How can I go to God with an angry heart? And then also allow me to think back on things that he might be struggling with in a season, right? Where I need to extend grace, right? If he's struggling with his purpose, maybe he's not feeling confident in that season, and that's my opportunity to extend grace. Right. And so I need to be so connected with God and forever doing a heart check so that whenever I approach my husband, it will be coming from a place of love. So I think that's what that whole, growth process.
That's a real remedy though, because I've started praying for everybody who I want to fight. Everybody who I want to drag down the hallway by
Oh
everybody
Lord.
ponytail.
No,
Everybody who
Lord,
just need to
don't
get
do it.
kicked in the shin. Like just
Don't do
you
it.
know, I just started praying for them. And
Right.
that really honestly, it turned my heart. It
Right.
turned my heart.
It does
Now
turn
when
your
I see
heart.
you in the streets, I might not slap you.
I
You know
mean,
what I'm saying? Because I've been
it
praying
take
for you,
growth. It
sis,
take time, man. It
bruh.
take time.
You know, I've been
Yeah.
praying.
Yeah.
I've been praying for you, so I'm
I've been
not gonna beat
praying
you
for you.
down.
Listen, that's real. That's real.
You
But
funny.
you mentioned something that I want to go back to, and that's dope wives. That's how we got on the conversation of marriage to begin with. And so to me, Dope Wives is your ministry. Tell the people out there watching what Dope Wives is.
So Dope Wives is a ministry for millennial, not even just millennials at this point, just young Christian wives. We got married in 2014, and we were like one of the first of our friends, but the ones who did, they were getting divorced before their first year of marriage. And people don't realize we got married in a very challenging time. Not to say our parents and grandparents didn't have struggles, but when we were told that education was valuable, right? And then we went to school, and most of us, when we graduated, had a hard time finding jobs.
Right.
Or if we did find jobs, we weren't working in the capacity in which we thought we were, and we're settling for less. Then you have student loans, so there's debt, and then it's like there's all these different elements. We're growing, but life is not what we were told it was going to be. Like if you do this, and that, here's what's going to happen. And so we were, 24, 25 when we got married? And so we were finding ourselves in this world that's completely different from what they told us it was going to be.
Right.
And so we're learning to maneuver while catering to each other's needs. That's a hard thing to do.
It's hard when you're adulting. That 22 to 26. Ooh.
Yeah. Oh, that was yeah.
Took the best years of my life.
Yeah. And then, I said we grew up in a household where it was like whatever happens in the house stays in the house, right? You don't tell people your business.
Don't be telling them people my business.
That's how
Don't be telling them people my business.
Right.
And don't have them calling me on my job.
Right.
Right.
That's how we were raised. So it was to see where we are now, being so transparent, it's all God, because this is not like normally comfortable for us to like be so open.
I think we have to get out of that space as a culture though, and talk about things more freely, celebrate our accomplishments and not pull each other down. It's okay to be great. It's okay to celebrate your genius. It's okay to brag, because we brag different, That's okay. We have to embrace that. But also, we've been having more conversations in recent years about therapy. That used to be you better pray about it, gargle with some warm salt water, whatever, you go to sleep. Give it to the Lord and don't question God. So we are unlearning a lot of religious practices that have continued to enslave our culture. So we are a part of that revolution. We are a part of that revival of the culture. It starts with these conversations.
And so I didn't believe that, whatever happens in the house, you don't want to go broadcasting your business, but you need community, because, if you're not able to have a community of folks that you can share your struggles with, what y'all gonna do?
I can't send hearts on my own live, but that was the word.
Y'all gonna struggle silently, because
you need community, and community
healthy
is accountability.
Healthy community, right?
Healthy community.
Accountability.
Spirit of discernment too, because some of these folks. But
girl, we can stay here all night talk about friends with spiritual gifts.
Right. But I need a community, because nobody was talking about it. All of my friends who did everything by the book, checkbox, no, don't do this before marriage, don't do that before marriage, go to church this much, read our Bible, like they were doing things like and still was having divorce, because they didn't have community where they can be open and transparent and real about some of these challenges. It's not pretty, So I created Dope Wives to facilitate that, and it just grew to become something so beautiful, where so many women gravitated to it, and even single women gravitated to it because they were like, okay, I want to be
I was
attached to
like,
this
can I do
thing.
something?
Yeah.
Can I be in the group?
You know, but hey, if you single, you trying to be married, might want to be around some married folks.
That's honest though. You have to change the company you keep, because you might
Mhm.
be around single people who love being single and they don't want to get out of that state of mind. And so you
Yeah.
got in order to change your mind, you got to change your environment. So you might want to have more married friends. I got hella married friends right now. I don't know what's happening.
Uh-oh. Somebody on your radar.
I might just be old though. It might just be age. More
No,
friends are getting married. But
it's
let me
never too late.
ask you this, Parker. I know you mentioned this earlier, but what kind of reception have you both received since you've been sharing your testimony about fertility?
Fertility, okay. Like I said, you'll be surprised. Like, that's why I'm open to doing this now, because you could never get me to talk on camera. But now I'm like, you know what, God, this is helping a lot of people. Like, I got people that inbox me and say,
A lot.
man, your story and your wife's testimony, it just
Praise
touched
God.
me, because
People message us all the time.
my wife is going through it now, and you can lose your marriage in the process of not, knowing how to be there for her. Because as a man, we don't know. We just sitting there like, listen, I was taught that, once certain things happen, you're supposed to be, pregnant.
And
It's
kudos
been
to
5
you.
years. It's been 5 years.
Yeah, for
What's
being
going
that
on?
partner.
Right.
For having that compassion and empathy for your wife.
And if it didn't happen, I still love her enough to know that, you know what, I would take what I can get. I can't have everything I asked for, So if that's what it would took, like if she couldn't have kids, then I would have been like, you know what, I'm okay with that. She was, more in the part where she was more hurt by it, and I had to, help her through that, because she felt like that's the one thing she couldn't do for me, and I was like, babe, you've done so much, like we'll be
Look
okay,
what she did for you though.
Right.
Look what
And
she
I was
did
there,
though.
Georgia. I was there.
The baby looked just like you. The girl, she got your face. I mean, I ain't never seen a more twin like.
Am I even her mother?
You did that. But they go through different phases.
Yeah, I
Lil
think
looked like
she is.
Jay for a little bit. Then she was Beyonce. Then she was Jay. You know what I'm saying? So we go through different phases.
I think she'll catch up. We have a boy.
How has your life changed though since Ava has joined your family? How has your marriage changed?
Honestly, I feel like I'm always being watched. And I say that in a joking way, but man, this girl would not let me do anything to her mom. I can't even speak loud. Even if I'm telling her I love her in a loud voice, she is watching me, and she's just watching my tone. She watching the way I deal with her, the way I handle. She do everything. And one thing I told my wife now, I will never have a conversation in front of Ava that's hard or anything, because I don't want her to see a man, talking down or being, I don't want to see that. I don't want her to grow up knowing that's okay. So we changed a lot. We had to start, changing the way we treat each other, the way we talk to each other, and we just go from there, because she's a sponge, man. Everything we do, she watch.
Yeah. And even for me, like, we thought we were good on a lot of things, but it's like it's not until you have someone there watching and you're like, well, I probably could do this a little differently. And one of the things that we never really had growing up, our parents, they did the best they could, but we don't know what it looks like to argue healthy or have like, healthy discussions. So there's the part where
you have another 30 minutes.
That's a
what does that even look like?
What does that look like? We've never really grew up in a household where we saw challenging, discussions, and they still come out of it with love. It's not like, okay, well, I ain't gonna talk to you for a couple of days. It's like how to come to a healthy resolution in a marriage. We didn't really see that, and I want that for her. I want her to know, as a Black woman, it's okay to be independent and dependent, right? Because one of the things that I had to learn in my marriage too is how to let him lead, because culturally we're taught and conditioned to be able to do things on our own. And so being able to release, some of those responsibilities to my husband, I'm also demonstrating to her how to be strong and soft
as a woman, you know? So a lot of those things are at play, you know, with the way we deal with each other since she got here.
Yeah. But healthy communication is key, man. If you don't know how to talk to each other, it's not gonna work. You gotta learn how to, when she needs time to talk, you gotta let her talk. You gotta let her get it out. And trust me, men need time to talk too. I know we don't say much, but
Men
if you
talk.
listen, you let a man go all the time without talking, it's not gonna end well. So, you know, she does this all the time now. She checks, she be like, how are you doing mentally, you know? And it just stops you in your sentence. You like, what? And she just be like, no, mentally, like not physically, not, you know, how are you doing mentally? It's like a heart check. It's like, you know what? I'm having a bad day. Can you just listen for a second? And just having that minute to get it out. You have somebody to just share your space with. And it's so important, man. Because we hold in a lot and it don't end well. That's when things start happening in a marriage and you can't go to your partner. So I think that's very important.
And I've kind of learned him too. Yeah. I've kind of learned him too, you know, because when he gets real quiet and kind of like in a space, you know, I'm like, okay. I'm like, babe, how you doing today? And he was like looking at me crazy, like, what? I said, how you feeling? And then, you know, usually he got a lot on his mind, and it just creates an opportunity where it's not like I'm not attacking you, I'm not, you know, unloading on you. I'm creating space for you to share what's on your heart.
Come on, space.
Our black men need that. Yeah.
Space.
Right.
And you know that's not just for, you know, our partners, our husbands, our boyfriends. That's so real because I try to create that space for my brothers, you know, like I'm the only girl of 4. So I'm checking in with them. Like, you good? You know, like, you sure
and
it's
you
not
never
anxiety?
Know
like, you know what I'm saying?
Time.
Like, because those symptoms, we don't even know what anxiety, we didn't even know what that was. Your nerves just bad.
Right.
You know, like we didn't have language for that. Right. And now we do. So we have to continue these conversations. I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight and for sharing your story with me. You know, for everybody who's listening, who's watching, make sure you go listen to the Purpose Producer podcast, Marriage, Faith, and Fertility. It's a 2-part episode featuring this lovely couple, my friends, Dwayne and Talya Parker. So thank you, Ava. And and good night. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I love you.
I love you guys. Bye.